thank you for joining. We will let a few minutes until we start, and we have our guest speaker, Alicia Johnson. Welcome, and Lily, of course, partnering with me for this webinar. All right, I see a few people that are joining. By the way, in the chat, you can tell us where you are joining from. It's always interesting to see where the people are located. So we see that you are here too.
Well, where are we all located? We can start it off. Hey guys, I'm Alicia, and I am in Alexandria, Egypt at the moment.
I'm Lily, and I'm currently in Malaga, Spain.
And I'm Jean-Claude Monachon, and I'm in Cyprus.
And we have Petra here from Germany too. Look at us.
Yes.
We are hitting the globe. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Poland. Rafael, Poland. Cool. And I see still people joining, so let's wait another 2-3 minutes. Sweden. Oh, that's very interesting. I love that when I see people from everywhere joining, and it gives always this feeling of being very international and having the chance to use the technology to get us being close to each other.
Super yeah, it makes the globe seem very close. Like you can't imagine how far away everyone really is.
Yes,
we're all in the same room.
Romania, sorry.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic. Welcome.
I mean, that's what I love about the dive community, though, is that it's a sport that you can do all over the world and with people who want to come from many different places. And you find yourself at these little hubs going to check out the same sites and just meeting people from all over. I love that about the diving.
Oh, and
all right, some other Americans. Thanks. Hello, guys.
Yes, hello, and Greece. Super. Hello, Georgios. Hello, Linda. Stephen. Amazing. So since we are waiting a little bit more, by the way, if during the presentation you have a few questions, you have on the bottom of your screen, you have a Q&A button. So you can basically click there and you can type your question. So at the end of the presentation, then Alicia will be able to give you more feedback. So that will be also easier to keep the questions for the future. So we have a reference also there. New Hampshire. Cool.
I love
Welcome,
New Hampshire.
Robin. Excellent. So shall we start? What do you think?
Sounds good with me.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I was just going to introduce a little bit Alicia Johnson. So Alicia Johnson is our guest speaker for today, and the very first guest speaker we have for our Diver Show webinars, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us here today. Alicia is a maritime archaeologist, wreck diver, and passionate ocean explorer, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about her work, how divers, so yourselves, can help out with maritime archaeology by being citizen scientists, and we'll be talking a little bit about the safety aspect. Alicia has a presentation to show us, but before we go ahead with that, I just thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what got you into diving, and wreck diving in specific.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for hosting me. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Alicia Johnson. I'm actually a native of Gloucester, Massachusetts, which is one of America's oldest seaports. So I grew up being on the water and seeing firsthand the importance of the human connection with our waterways. And I graduated from College of Charleston back in 2011 with a degree in history and classics. And I've always found myself drawn to ancient history, even modern history, and looking at the parallels to the past to try and better understand our circumstances at this moment. After college, I actually got into a kind of a different career outside of history. I started working on charter yachts in the Caribbean for about 4 years, and that's where I got into scuba diving. I was kind of incentivized due to the line of work I was in to become a scuba diver because it offered me more opportunities to work in the field. So I started my open water with Peter at Koki Dive with my friend Dale, and I just fell in love with it. And I'd say within 2 weeks, I went from never having scuba dive to being an advanced open water. And as a result of working on charter yachts, I had a yacht to my disposal. So we went recreational scuba diving on famous sites such as the Wreck of the Rhone in the British Virgin Islands, as well as, I believe, the Kodiak Queen that Sir Richard Branson sank and off the coast of Virgin Gorda, I think back in 2015. So I ended up leaving that industry after Hurricane Irma did a number on the islands, and I decided I wanted to go back to school and do my master's. So I looked online and I tried to figure out a cost-effective and interesting way to do a master's that would combine my love of history and my love of the water. So that's how I found a program at the Center of Maritime Archaeology and Underwater Cultural Heritage in Alexandria, Egypt. So, like most sane people, I applied and moved to Egypt promptly after spending a year diving in the Philippines and exploring Busuanga Bay. So, it was at this point in time where I was privileged enough to be acquainted with the Red Sea. And I started thinking about my background in tourism and seeing how tourism can benefit local economies that have beautiful waters as well as amazing history. And I decided I wanted to look into the underwater cultural heritage of the Red Sea because one of the most famous shipwrecks in the world that is accessible to recreational divers is the Thistlegorm. So I found myself looking at 3 different case studies involving Sedana Island, as well as Fury Shoals, which is a Roman era wreck, and the Thistlegorm to try and evaluate site management plans, as well as how to work with the dive community in the Red Sea to preserve the underwater cultural heritage, as well as how I can effectively reach the public to get them to care about preserving these sites. So I'm currently back in Alexandria and getting ready to go back to the Red Sea to hopefully do some shipwreck diving. But that's a little bit about me. And now I'm currently the digital head for engagement at a company specializing in surveying called AccuPixel, where we work with photogrammetry to help document not only cultural heritage sites, but any other field that needs a base monitor to evaluate where we want to move forward with development or seeing if there's any problems caused to these sites over time. So it's really effective in archaeology because it creates a model that can be accessed from anyone in the world and allows for precise measurements that traditional methods of drawing didn't quite allow. So that's where I'm in now. I'm happily working in my field and looking forward towards working on more projects in maritime archaeology.
Wow, thank you very much. That sounds very interesting. And you also answered about 3 of the other questions that I had to ask you. So that's
Oh
great.
no.
No, that's fine. So if you're ready, I would say if you want to start with your presentation and
Yeah, we can go ahead and jump right into it. Let
yeah.
me start let me get back to
Just to let you know as well that Robin from New Hampshire said that he did his course at Koki too.
Oh, you did? Oh, Koki was so much fun. I loved that. That was the first time I learned that lobsters are nocturnal and they like to have a party at night, was when I was in that area. All right, let's get my PowerPoint open. Da, da, da.
Okay,
All
we can
right.
see your presentation.
Can everyone see my beautiful presentation? And we have Dr. Ziad Morsi towards the right of the propeller here. This is the famous Thistlegorm. I don't know if you guys have dived it or would like to dive it, but I recommend it. It's also my background here. Observe the awesome gun. It's cool. So today we're going to talk about community science and underwater cultural heritage preservation. How are we engaging with divers with heritage management. And again, my name is Alicia Johnson. I am the head of digital engagement with AccuPixel and a maritime archaeologist based in Alexandria. Let's move ahead. So first off, we need to ask ourselves, what is underwater cultural heritage? I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard the terms maritime archaeology. This is kind of the encompassing word that we use to describe aspects of the field. And it's also used in the 2001 UNESCO Convention regarding maritime archaeology and underwater cultural heritage preservation. So if you ever see the letters UCH, this is what it means. So what does it include? It includes shipwrecks, ports, and submerged settlements, and these serve as remarkable windows into human history. They offer insight into past trade, culture, traditions, as well as military events, trade. Really, it's a great way to better understand our connection with the water through the past, because before we developed aviation, one of the fastest and easiest ways, necessarily not the safest, was to move things by ship. So prior to the 1900s, a lot of human history and interactions between cultures are possible just because of the waterways. So we all know some traditional sites such as the pyramids of Giza, such as the Parthenon in Greece, and even Stonehenge. Now, these aren't necessarily underwater cultural heritage or maritime cultural heritage, but they are famous archaeological sites. And they also face the same issues that affect my field. And the biggest risk right now, kind of towards underwater cultural heritage, it comes from climate change, looting, still happens with everyone else. We just saw it happen at the Louvre. It happens today. It is an ongoing issue in our field. These sites, shipwrecks, can be really drastically affected by careless diving and natural erosion. And one of the worst issues that I kind of continue to see is poor diver etiquette on these sites. I believe I just saw, I'm not sure if it was the Zenobia, I would have to check, but some graffiti that was done on the propeller of the wreck. So you see people who don't recognize the importance of preserving these and keeping them accessible for future generations. So that's something, as being a diver, you want to be aware of, is how can you properly behave on these wrecks. And also you have to keep in mind, we are actually the first responders to changes underwater, being able to see them. As much as I would love to say that maritime archaeologists are flush with cash, we're not. And we're not the ones going out every day to dive all over and see new sites. In fact, most of the time, an archaeological site that's underwater is usually discovered by scuba divers, recreational scuba divers. So that means that you guys are kind of the first responders to this, and you play a vital role in identifying and reporting site damages, as well as locating a site or an artifact. So I think that every dive presents an opportunity to document, protect, and preserve our shared maritime heritage. And we're going to be moving forward here. As you see, though, on the left here, we have Simon Brown. He is my boss, and he's also the lead at AccuPixel, and he has taught me a lot of photogrammetry, and I worked with him on the Wrecks at Risk project, in which we created 3D models for several shipwrecks in the Red Sea, including the Thistlegorm, which we will get to later. My research in the Red Sea was largely funded by the Honor Frost Foundation, and Honor Frost was a very wonderful woman in the field, and she often said that time spent on the surface is time wasted. And behind her image that we have in the center here is an image I took of the Giannis D, which is a shipwreck that went down, I believe, in the 1980s. It's quite a large vessel. It's split in half, but it's one of the more modern shipwrecks that you can see that's still in pretty good condition, but it has kind of this mechaphobic appearance to it that you don't necessarily see in older shipwrecks. So what is community science? I'm sure you guys might have heard this before, but it kind of comes down to public participation in real research, i.e. what we call citizen science. So in my research, I actually had quite a large questionnaire sent out to divers who were visiting the Red Sea to ask them about their interest in scuba diving and shipwrecks. How are they willing to pay for their preservation? What would they need to see to be willing to pay for their preservation? Are they interested in learning more about the field? In fact, I had about 20 questions in this questionnaire to better understand what is it that not only the local stakeholders want to see, but also instructors, dive professionals, and recreational divers. So just by sending out questionnaires and answering them, you guys are helping with our research because we need to collect data. We want to know what the public wants. So we don't necessarily always get the answers directly. So it helps you guys be able to interact with us. So being aware of organizations such as the Honor Frost Foundation and the ACUA, which is the Advisory Council of Underwater Archaeology in North America, kind of knowing who's involved, it can help you report something if you see a different observation about a site that's changed and whatnot. Another one that's quite well known is the Maritime Archaeological Trust. That's in the UK as well. So you guys can help contribute data, photographs, and observations to not only maritime archaeologists like me that are present online, but also to organizations that foster their preservation. And in doing so, this empowers local communities while also strengthening conservation and raising awareness. And overall, try and generate attractions and preserve heritage for everyone, because that's the purpose of my field that I think, maybe not everybody does, but I think I'm working to make these sites more publicly accessible and enjoyable and hopefully here for future generations to enjoy. So we're connecting scientists, local stakeholders, dive tourist operators, and recreational divers. So overall, shipwrecks, yes, they seem like maybe a small item, but they actually are part of a larger blue economy that so many people are involved with in terms of their hobbies as well as their financial income as well. So it sounds like it's small, but it has quite a large ripple effect. So overall, we're thinking diving helps with our participation, empowerment, and connection. And on the right here, we have my really good friend Said. He looks great there, doesn't he? And he's inside of the Carnatic, which is a 19th century shipwreck that's off of the Abu Nahas shoal right outside of the Sinai. And it's one of my favorite shipwrecks, and it's actually quite recognizable for its almost skeletal appearance because of the rafters that are inside. Great site to visit, photograph, and also the history behind these sites is unique and interesting. So each one has a story. And whether it's a famous one like the Titanic or maybe a lesser one known such as the Carnatic, they all offer a glimpse into our past. So, as a diver, what are the best practices and collaborations? Well, preserving underwater heritage depends on collaboration and respect. So by observing responsibly, sharing data ethically, and working alongside archaeologists and local communities, divers can become active participants in safeguarding the history beneath the waves. So a lot of this comes down to how do you act on a site, on a shipwreck? Well, let me start off by saying a mistake I made so that no one thinks that I'm a superhero, because that's how we move ahead in these things. Something that you might not really think about, but it's making sure that all of your gear is together. You don't want to look like a Christmas tree dangling, because this can actually cause damage to the sites, because your compass that might be dragging along, well, that's kind of problematic. So obviously, we don't encourage anyone to touch the shipwreck. You probably shouldn't touch the shipwreck in general. Try not to. It's okay if you're trying to get through a place, but I always recommend that you have on a glove, because there's a really easy way to deglove yourself is on a shipwreck. So try not to touch anything and protect the sites through careful observations. As we say, leave only your bubbles. Don't take anything off the sites either, and try not to move anything either. But I think that's kind of an encompassing idea, correct? So you want to be respectful and responsible. I mean, a lot of these sites, we can talk about them as being attractions and amazing, but as pictured behind me, this is the Salem Express. It's a shipwreck that claimed hundreds of lives when it sank, and it's still in the recent memory of Egyptian people. So not only are these sites that we can learn and study the past, they're graves. they're cemeteries, and you need to have respect about this fact. So you want to behave responsibly and follow laws, permits, and site boundaries. You want to share data that you collect, information and observations via heritage networks, as I suggested earlier. And then you want to consider your collaboration and community. So partnering with archaeologists, following people like me online, educators and local communities to strengthen awareness and training. You wouldn't believe how many webinars there are available all the time about maritime archaeology and outreach endeavors. So if you're really interested in this stuff, start following some of the archaeologists that you see on LinkedIn and on Facebook, because we want to talk about our research, I assure you. Please listen to us. Let's move ahead here. So how can divers contribute? Well, divers play a vital role in preserving underwater cultural heritage. As I said before, we are often the first responders. So that can come down to locating the site, taking the geolocation specs and being able to report it, to maybe going to a more well-known site that maybe hasn't had a survey done on it and maybe conducting something yourself. One of the cooler things I've gotten into, it's called photogrammetry. And this is where we create accurate models of wrecks and artifacts. And we do this through using thousands of images that we've created by basically moving around the wreck in kind of a circular upward pattern. And then we use a software like Zephyr and Metashape to stitch it together. And so in doing this, we can monitor sites for changes and report new discoveries to heritage authorities. We can turn exploration into active preservation. And to the left here, we have a shipwreck called the Numidia. And I believe this is on the famous site Brothers in Egypt. If you ever do the BDE route, you might find yourself lucky enough to be gazing at this beautiful, beautiful wreck. And also, how many divers do we see in that image there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere around that. All of these are people who are coming to put money into the economy to help create jobs for a location that doesn't necessarily have a high personal income. So by preserving these sites, we're creating more income in the blue economy, and it's pulling places up like Egypt, the Maldives, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand is pulling up the economies just because of tourism and the income and the jobs that it creates. So this, we contribute, not only do we contribute through documenting and reporting things, but also just going. Just going is going to help the economy in general. It's gonna give that tour guide a reason to get up and out of bed, and it's gonna help him feed his family. So I mean, these sites, we're lucky that they're in places with warm waters, but they're in places that actively need economic stimulation. And it's something to consider with tourism is ethical tourism, and knowing that where you're contributing is helping the people. So moving ahead, we're discussing photogrammetry, creating 3D models of wrecks and artifacts, site monitoring, especially if it's one that you dive regularly, because you can note if you see corrosion, movement of items, loss of items, marine growth, any changes at all on the site, because nasty weather can cause a lot of damage to a site, as well as shifting tides and whatnot. And then reporting what you see with heritage authorities. And my personal favorite that I think is probably the most accessible is storytelling. So sharing your images, your videos, what you felt after the dive on social media and with your friends and with other divers, because it helps raise awareness, and it helps reiterate why these sites need to be protected, because nobody wants to destroy a site that was awesome. Like, let's keep them accessible and beautiful, because not only are they worth studying, but they're also worth preserving for people today and tomorrow to enjoy. So in this image here to your right, it's actually not an image. It is a 3D flyover of a photogrammetric model that was created in the 2022 Wrecks at Risk expedition that brought together the University of Alexandria as well as the University of Edinburgh in a project to create 3D models for several different shipwrecks in the Red Sea. And as you can see here, the Thistlegorm looks beautiful. By creating this 3D model, we have an accurate down to the pixel measurement of everything going on this ship at this point in time. So, photogrammetry is a technique that uses overlapping photographs to create precise 3D models. And it allows archaeologists to document underwater and terrestrial sites in exceptional detail without physically disturbing anything. As part of the Rex at Risk project, Simon Brown of AccuPixel used this method to digitally reconstruct the SS Thistlegorm, the Carnatic, the Giannis D, and the Dunraven in the Red Sea, and he captured thousands of images to produce an accurate, measurable model for research and preservation. So what's cool about this is that not only did we create an accurate model in 2022, but whenever we're able to move forward again on this project, we'll be able to do another model and basically overlap them and compare what changes have been done. This isn't really something that you could do with a traditional sketching and drawing. It allows for a precise way to monitor these sites. And there's a lot of other divers that have gotten into the hobby of photogrammetry and using the site Sketchfab to put up their cave explorations, their wreck diving. I mean, in general, it's kind of a cool community within of itself. Oh, there it is. It does look pretty cool, doesn't it? Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want to follow me on social media, because sometimes I post wrecks and other adventures, follow me on Facebook, Alicia Johnson, and on Instagram, Aloof Nerd. And before I stop talking about this presentation, the image behind me right here is the Carnatic again, with one of my friends who was a very younger diver. And we had a great time. So thanks so much, guys, for hosting me.
Thank you, Alicia. Wow, that was a fantastic presentation. Really enjoyed it. There was a lot of great information there and was very, very interesting. I love your Instagram tag. Always makes me laugh.
Yep, I'm just a nerd and I'm aloofing around.
Yeah. So we're going to keep an eye out for any questions coming up in the Q&A. And there was somebody that at some point put their hand up. I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but please feel free to type any questions you have. And I'm sure we will manage to get back to you before the end of this webinar. Alicia, when you explore wrecks, what are you looking for from like a safety perspective? How do you plan for your wreck dives and ensure that your wreck dives are going to remain safe for the duration of the dive?
Well, the first thing is definitely make sure you get yourself a trusted dive buddy. I'm sure there are people who do these alone, but I like to know that I'm going with somebody who also is interested and wants to be safe. I guess first off, double check your equipment. Always. Always double check your equipment and double check your buddy's equipment. You want to make sure that the weather is fine. You don't want to be diving if there's going to be a drastic tidal change or if there's a storm that's coming. And then obviously you want to plan your dive. You want to figure out what is your entrant and exit point. Don't leave that up to chance because that's when problems can happen. And then I guess I would recommend being mindful of your fin movement because inside of these wrecks, there can often be a lot of sediment. And it's quite easy to confuse yourself and become claustrophobic if you disturb your visibility. So I think that that's an important thing. And also I recommend you have obviously a dive computer, but an SMB, because sometimes if you're diving wrecks with a larger group of people, especially on the Thistlegorm, there can be so many divers that people don't recognize which group is theirs and they wander off accidentally, but they usually hook up with another group without realizing it's not their group. And then they
All divers look the same.
Yeah, exactly. You got like 6 people underwater. You're like, this looks like a fun group. I'm joining it. And then you're on the wrong boat. So we've had divers that, not in my groups or anything, but just like in the news, that have gone for a nice 8-mile drift down to an oil rig. So I always recommend have an SMB, have a whistle, just like your emergency stuff in general. So I guess those would be some of the points that I would say are important. And also I know in some deeper wrecks, it's good to have a line to follow, but that's if you're doing something like the Andrea Dory or something along that. So if you're doing more shallow wrecks, that might not necessarily be something you need, but it's not a bad thing to have. And also, if you are heavy on your air consumption, it's good to consider taking a 15 liter just in case. And also if you could be doing nitrox if that's the best one. So also evaluating what type of air are you going to be diving on. So same goes for tech diving as well, but I'm not authorized to speak on that just yet. I'm sure I'll get there.
I'm sure you will. It was good to hear that you said have a dive buddy, because the amount of videographers I met in my career as a diving instructor that despite being assigned a buddy, they ended up solo diving quite a lot. And I could imagine that if you were not careful, that with research diving, you could end up, yeah,
Oh yeah, well I
accidentally solo
guess
diving.
well that's the thing about videography and photography is I can easily incentivize someone to stay near me. Like, do you want some nice photos? I bet you do. Stay nearby.
That's a good good tip. Yeah.
It's true.
Have you ever had a situation where, I mean, maybe you had a really important research dive and you really wanted to get these photos or make get some research on a particular dive site, and something was off, you had to abort the dive, or maybe you should have aborted the dive, but perhaps you kept going because you were really, yeah.
I mean, of course, you always have something that goes wrong every now and then. I guess I had one time I was diving in on the Thistlegorm and I can't. It was a really strong current, and I think I might have missed the line, and I wasn't descending quickly enough to catch the other line, and the current caught me. But I just took a second and took a deep exhalation and dropped on down to that wreck, and they were all surprised to see me. So these things happen. You want to make sure that you're, especially if you have heavy equipment, you want to make sure that your entrance into the water is going to be smooth and non-problematic, because the easiest way to run into a problem, there's lots of ways, but if you start getting your heart racing fast, your breathing changes, and that is going to consume a lot of your air. So always being mindful of your psychological space, I think, is very important, because panic can make everything 10 times worse.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I think a lot of divers think like when the conditions are fantastic, great visibility, maybe within, I don't know, dive sites maybe 20 meters, what's that in feet, 60 feet, that
Mhm.
nothing's going to happen, and they feel very secure and perhaps don't even plan ahead for the what ifs and if something was to go wrong. So yeah, it's always good to plan for the contingency and for the
Yes,
what if
I very
something was
much
to go
agree.
wrong.
I'm one of those people to plan
Yeah,
100%. I have plan A, B, C, D.
absolutely. Stephen Palm has asked if certification programs teach new divers the importance of diver etiquette, and do they agree on what that means? I'm going to go ahead and answer that one. As an SSI instructor trainer, I can speak for our programs with SSI. Of course, there is dive etiquette taught, and especially if you attend on a wreck diving specialty, you will learn a lot about diving around wrecks, how to stay safe, and also things like Alicia did just mention, like don't touch them, be aware, be mindful, be respectful of the dive sites, the wreck sites. Wear gloves in case there's a situation where you may have to touch something for your own safety. But unfortunately, it's still not a must to have these certifications. I mean, of course, in the recreational diving side, yes, but if anyone wants to go on a rec dive site, as long as it's within the depth of their recreational limit, theoretically they can go there. So then I guess the responsibility lies with the professional taking them diving, who conducts the briefing, and this person should hopefully mention to all divers and remind all divers how to behave. What's your experience with this, Alicia? Do you, like, on the boats that you dive with, do you always hear good dive briefing, and do you always feel like
I'm the one that gives the dive briefing about
Ah, there we
behaving well
go.
on shipwrecks because I'm a little bit of a charismatic nerd about my research. So most of the time, if I'm doing a dive trip, I know the staff that's running it, and they usually like my work and support my work. And a lot of the times, the divers are interested in my work, so I end up giving presentations a lot of the time whenever I'm on the dive boats. But I can say there are a lot of instructors who are passionate about preservation. Like a really good organization, well, Dive Boat is Alfredo. I always see that they're posting updates and their director speaks with me regularly to tell me if he notices anything about the thistlegorm being upset or if there's been a cleat that has suddenly moved or fallen off the bow. So there's a lot of people that are really passionate about preserving these wrecks. So I think in general, you want to dive with responsible organizations and look to see that the instructors themselves are modeling positive behavior on these sites. And
Yeah,
try to
that's
be a
a very
model
good point.
yourself, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point to pick and choose who you go diving with and make sure that it's a responsible dive operation.
Hmm.
Um, Going back to the citizen scientist slide that you had in the presentation, you mentioned sending information into the local heritage authorities. Is there a way to find these easily, or is it something you would just need to Google or?
I would honestly, I would say unfortunately, that aspect of our field is not necessarily great, but a lot of the times a lot of wrecks are kind of in national parks. So I can say, for example, like the Virgin Island National Parks, they have an archaeological department and whatnots, and also kind of following organizations like the ACUA on the Honor Frost Foundation, as well as universities that have reputable maritime archaeological departments as well. Like I believe University of Michigan has a good one, as well as I believe University of Wisconsin, and there are several decent ones in Australia, University of Edinburgh, University of Southampton. And the thing is that if you follow any of these organizations, you'll often see that they showcase students and researchers and what they're doing. So I recommend if you're interested, try to follow people who are doing the work. If you're really interested, I mean, we're bored. We'll talk to you guys, you know? I mean, if someone messages me about my research, yeah, I'd love to talk. Tell me about the shipwreck you found. Where was it? Let's see if we can get it documented and get it recognized because you have organizations, especially in the UK, I believe it's a British Heritage, that's what they do. They keep a record of all of these items. So it's more so just figuring out the department that's in charge and contacting them. Especially, you'll see a lot too in marine science. I know there's a lot of manta ray recognition as well as whale shark recognition. If you take a photo of the little buddy and you send it to the corresponding organization, it gets used for citizen science and documentation. So we're kind of in the nascent stages of developing that because, as we pointed out earlier, how we're all connected on the globe. Well, now we can all send information back and forth. So now we're kind of trying to put that all together.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can imagine it's hard to to find one spot, but as you said, it's probably more local uh, research programs that then offer this, and then you need to find the one that depending on where the dive site is located.
Yeah, exactly. And usually, I mean, there probably will be a government organization as well. Like
Yeah.
Egypt has the Ministry of Antiquities. The United States has NOAA. Like, if you look for the bureaucracy, you'll find it.
Soren is asking, what is the reason for deciding for Alexandria University as a base for your archaeological work? And are there more resources than near Rome, Greece, or Sicily?
Well, I mean, I grew up watching The Mummy and dreaming of coming to Egypt. I mean, I'm from Boston originally, and Boston has quite a beautiful collection of Egyptian artifacts from at the Museum of Fine Arts. And when I was a little girl, all I wanted to do, I was like, oh, I just want to go and explore that part of the world. I've always been interested in ancient history. And I guess after I graduated, I spent a lot of time in undergraduate reading. I love to read, and one of my favorite authors, as well as TV personalities, was Anthony Bourdain. So I grew up watching No Reservations, and I just fell in love with how he explored the world and how he used food to connect with different people from every different culture. So when I left the yachting industry, I finally said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go to Egypt. I mean, everybody thought I was crazy, it's not really something the average person does, but I saw what happened in the political movement in 2013, and I thought to myself, I want to know what's going on over there because I don't think I'm going to get a real perspective unless I go for myself. So, as an American with our country's background in the Middle East and North Africa, I thought it would benefit me to better understand what's going on over here. And I thought, I was 29 years old. I said I wanted to have my master's or be in it by the time I was 30, and I found a pretty decent program, and that was headed by Dr. Ahmed Khalil and was endorsed by the Honor Frost Foundation. And I said, all right, let's go for it. So I found myself at the United Nations in New York City doing paperwork to come over to Egypt. And I've been here on and off mostly 6 years actually. And it's been a great ride. And I don't actually regret it to any extent. I mean, I've had my ups and downs, but I think if I had studied in Greece or Rome, I don't know if I would be as resourceful and ingenuitive as I am now. My capacity to solve a problem due to how many issues I've faced is quite strong. The critical thinking skills have been honed in Egypt because nothing is ever straightforward, and you always have to deal with a friend of a friend to get something done. So I guess I would say I like the challenge. I like the challenge that Egypt taught me, and I like the food here, and I like the people. And the Red Sea is awesome. I mean, I've dived the Mediterranean. I've seen some spots over there, but have you seen the Red Sea? I guess that would be my answer. Have you seen the Red Sea?
I think you made the right choice.
I think so too. I've had a good time over here. Thank you, Egypt. Mazar
Yeah.
al Domya.
How like is so when you have your safety checklist, is diving insurance always part of it? Would you ever dive without a diving accident insurance?
Oh, at this point in my life, yes, for sure. I have dive insurance for everything. I have insurance on everything. I, I've had lots of problems happen, and most of the time I've said, I'm really thankful I've had insurance. Like last year, I had a real nasty problem at the British Museum of History, and I would have had probably a psychological meltdown if I hadn't had my insurance at that time because, I was robbed for my camera and all my equipment. But I thought ahead of time, and I had an insurance policy. So for me, I've already experienced why it's important to have insurance on property, let alone insurance on my like life. So
Yeah,
I guess I would say when you go to remote places and you don't know what the health facilities are like, it's not a bad idea. I mean, don't get me wrong, when I was young and reckless, probably I wasn't thinking about it, but now at this point in my life, there's something to lose if I have a problem. So I think it's important in general because it's better to not have a problem and have coverage than there to be a problem and not have coverage.
absolutely. Yeah, well said. Yeah, I surprisingly meet still a lot of people, quite often Europeans, I think, because we feel very safe. Most European countries have their government health plan that covers them for almost everything, and people feel safe without being covered. And I think a lot of people underestimate not just the risk of diving, but the risk of diving abroad, where you're in countries that don't cover you for, well, anything, but especially diving, where a diving accident can be very costly. So,
Yeah. You don't want to find out.
no,
You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's better to, and I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't really cost that much money to have coverage versus if you have a problem, it can cost a lot of money.
yeah,
A lot of money. Uh,
definitely. We have one more question before we wrap it up. I don't know the name, I can't quite see. It's ML. How is photogrammetry done? Do you need an Insta360? Is it on a specific paid app or program?
Well, I don't think you'd necessarily, I guess you could do it with an Insta360. The most important thing to consider is a fixed lens, because with photogrammetry, if you have a lens that you're moving about and adjusting the focal length of it, it's going to mess it up. This is why it can be done actually with a GoPro or with your camera phone, as long as you don't zoom in and out. So it can be done with pretty low tech cameras, cell phones, GoPros, and you can use there's several free apps. I think one is called Polycam. Polycam is a free one actually. That's pretty cool. And the more professional ones use Zephyr, 3D Zephyr Zephyr by 3D Flow. And the other one that's still used in the field is Metashape, but those are paid programs. However, you can get subscriptions for them for 30 days, or you can get the free trial to kind of learn how to do it. Like, I mean, that's one of the things we do at the company I work for, is we do photogrammetry courses. So if you ever really want to learn and get a certification, you can go to acupixel.co.uk and check it out. But there's plenty of YouTube tutorials on this matter, and it more so comes down to taking an item, shipwreck, pottery, anything, and collecting photos, but making sure that they are overlapping and that they have a shared point of reference in the photo. So you basically move around the item, taking photos, and then you use the program Metashape or 3D Flow to what it will do is it will look through all of the photos and find the shared points, the cloud points. And by connecting 2 or 3 of those that they can find in each photo, it'll figure out where the photo would go in terms of being able to create a 3D model. So that's how you do this, is you create a catalog of photos with overlapping shared points and use a program that can identify very precise details and match where they'd go together. And then you build a 3D model from it. So basically, the more images you have that of precision, you can get some incredibly precise models. So you can, granted, you can make a 3D model with maybe 15 or 20 photos, but it might not have the precision as, say, this thistlegorm that has thousands and thousands of photos that were used to stitch together to create this one large model.
It's amazing.
If that answers your question, Em.
I think so. Okay, great. Well, before I pass over to JC to wrap it up, I would just like to thank you personally, Alicia, for joining us today. I think you've provided a lot of really interesting information about maritime archaeology and becoming a citizen scientist for Rex, which is amazing, because I didn't know that existed until you told me about it. So I think that's really cool. Until now, I've only been taking photos of sea turtles' faces and manta ray bellies, but I'll be sure to upload my wreck diving photos from now on.
And I'm here to see them.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it. And remember, guys, dive safe. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alicia and Lily. But Alicia, I'm not a wreck diver, but your energy that you have shared during this presentation is just amazing. And well, I am now
I just love
really
Rex. They're so
ready
much
to go.
I'm
Very
trust
nice.
me, I'm ready. I'm itching to get back to the Red Sea. Like, the 2-week countdown is on.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for participating, for joining us at this webinar. Thank you, everyone, also for dedicating your time and joining us at this presentation, wonderful presentation. And we hope to see you soon again. And Alicia, I'm sure this is not the last time we see you.
No, I hope not. And again, thank you guys so much. And thank you to everyone who attended and anyone that's currently watching the recorded version of this. We'll give
the
a
replay.
thanks. Yeah, we got to think
Yes.
about the future here, right?
Absolutely.
All
Thank you
right.
very much. And we wish everyone a nice day or a nice evening,
Nice
no matter where
evening,
you
nice
are.
morning.
Happy bubbles,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.